Welcome to the Simple Minds podcast, where six mates unpack three topics over a new drink each week. Fuck it, just go with that. We'll fix it if it's...
Welcome to the Simple Minds podcast, everybody. Jacob, welcome.
Thank you.
Justin.
I think you're nervous, Conrad.
I am not nervous.
You are. I don't think this is what we
I am time conscious.
Time conscious.
Justin. I
This
can't
is
afford
another
to stand by the
episode.
hour.
What's up?
Maddie.
Hello.
And we've got a special guest in the studio today with us. I love hanging out with this guy whenever I get a chance. In Sydney, whenever you're in Perth. We've hung out in Calcutta. And where I first met you, Sam, was in San Francisco back in 2012. So, mate, great to have you on the show. Great to share you with my mates. Guys, this guy is probably one of the key people that have helped me change my mindset in the early parts of my business. And the principles that he brought out, which I'm going to throw on the table a bit later, are ones that I've tried to share with you guys anyway. But Sam, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for giving us your time, mate.
Thank you.
Do you want to give us a quick one minute brief on who you are and what you stand for in this world?
Yeah, right. So, first and foremost, family man. I married my high school sweetheart. So, we've been together now for 23 years. I've got 3 kids, reside in Sydney, and I live with a disability. So, I've only got one arm and I've got one leg that works. That was due to a major vehicle accident that I had around 11 years ago when I was around 26 years old. But at the moment, I'm first and foremost, I am a family man, and then I'm also an entrepreneur and a professional speaker. So I've been in the personal development space now for about 15 years, and certainly have reached a real tipping point in that industry, that's for sure.
Now, you've shared the stage with some pretty big people, right?
I've shared the stage with President Bill Clinton, with Dalai Lama, Richard Branson, Michael Jordan. That was an interesting experience.
Wow.
So, but you know what's really interesting? I've realised that everyone's just human beings. You know, no one is better than anyone else. Yes, we've got different experiences and we might have different intellectual abilities, but the bottom line is this: no one at all is better. You know, everyone still takes a shit in the toilet. Everyone is still a normal, everyday person. But sometimes we put these celebrities on pedestals and we think, "Whoa, man, they're like superhuman and stuff," but they're not. They're just ordinary, everyday people.
Yeah, just doing what they love generally. Mate, we generally run this show and we have a drink. And usually it's a Friday Arvo, and it's not a Friday Arvo, so we're not going down the alcohol path. I put it out to you as to what you felt like, a coffee or a juice, and you said, let's go juice. So I went and got, there's a new juice bar up in Leederville, just up the road here, called Nut something or other. I've forgotten what the name is, but new business. I love supporting new businesses wherever I can. And the drink I got was called a Brain Booster. So what it's got in it, E3 Live green algae, banana, blueberries, chia seeds, and coconut water. So it should be interesting.
I am enlightened already.
So cheers, guys. Let's have a sip and then we can start.
Have to do a fake ding. It's actually pretty good.
The algae threw me, but, do what you're uncomfortable with.
Where is this place?
In Leederville where they used to have that juice bar, that laneway from the car park, just in there, they've just taken over.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's changed
Vegan
ownership.
and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So it's pretty cool. Tastes all right.
Leederville.
Ugly colour, but it works. Mate, 2012, I want to take you back there where I first met you and the things that you left me with there. Because we've obviously hung out for a while. I've helped you with your business. You've helped me with my bullshit stuff.
You sure?
Yeah,
I think
still need a lot of work.
I think we've been good for each other. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I like having mates in my world that I can both bounce ideas off, but also we can challenge each other. One thing I always believe in is that if you've got mates around you, they should not accept you for who you were yesterday, which basically means that, you want people in your world that actually challenges you towards what's possible, challenges you towards what's next in your life. For me, it's all about what's next.
It's cool. Talk to me about Kairos Moments, Sam.
So obviously we all have moments, and we might have heard of of chronological time, or you might have heard of Chronos. But the reality is that Kairos Moments is a moment within a moment, a specific moment, and where drastic change takes place. It's like a sliding doors moment. And I think we all have moments in our life where things don't either go according to plan, or alternatively, there's a massive challenge or a massive crisis or even a sense of injustice or a challenge. And the reality is that these are what we call a Kairos moment, a moment within a moment. And I think and so for me, my Kairos moment was obviously when I lost my arm just suddenly, drastically overnight. But so it's a moment within a moment.
And when I spoke to you post your chat on stage, there was 700 delegates at this conference. I had to go and see you. I was in tears because you just gave me the word that defined the moment that I chose to change my life, and that was back in December 2009. Dad passed away, and my girlfriend left me, and I said, "Well, fuck, stuff's not going to happen to me anymore. This stuff has to happen and serve you."
One thing I think Kairos moments work really well with is a decision. The word decision comes from the Latin word decidere. Incision. Scission means to cut, and the word decide, suicide, pesticide. The word side means to kill. So the word decision means to cut off and kill. And I suppose when it does come to Kairos moments, sometimes, they're not planned. Certainly my car accident wasn't planned, or you losing your dad wasn't planned. But the reality is, through these Kairos moments, we need to make a decision. And one thing I realized, that it is our decision, not our condition, that determines who we are. And what I mean by that is, we all have these conditions in our life. My condition is obviously a lot more physical. I lost my arm, or we might have conditions that we might be stressed or anxiety or depressed or relationship breakdowns or even financial issues. But it's not about the condition. It's about the decision that determines who we are, particularly through those Kairos moments.
So if I jump in there, you've referred to the Kairos moments. Obviously, you had a significant one. Leading up to that, and I think we touched on this when we had Tash on the podcast, I mean, it takes a lot of skill and development or growth to get to, I guess, that mindset. When it happened to you, did you already have some foundational, I guess, elements, or was that a journey after the keto? I mean, at the moment, it's obviously not a keto moment. In the moment, it's probably not upon reflection. So how did you get to the, and I know Conrad talks about it a lot, and we talk about it, is everything's happening for you and not to you. How, was that a gut or did you need to learn that after, that moment for you? Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah. So look, I've always been a dreamer, which means that I always knew that there was something big on my life. And I think everyone has that. We all believe, particularly when we're young kids, that that we can actually change the world, or we can make a difference. And certainly that's what I've always had. But before my car accident, because I actually physically died, so my heart stopped for over 3.5 minutes, I was pronounced dead at the scene. I was even told that the coroner was called to come and pick up a dead body. So the reality is that I always knew that there was something big on my life. But before my accident, I didn't have a why. I didn't really have a purpose or a destiny or a calling. But I always had something deep within my soul that says there is more. There's something bigger that I need to achieve on this planet. So then going through a death experience, I then realized, wait a sec. I'm now looking through the eyes of someone totally different. I've actually now died, which then means that gratitude and that gratefulness that I still exist for a reason and a purpose. There's still something more that I have to achieve in this world. That's where I came from. But certainly, it was that combined also with a faith. I've got a very, very, very strong faith. And that faith has certainly been my foundation to realize that I exist on this planet for a reason and a purpose. And I genuinely believe that.
So it was through that faith that helped you get through that in terms of that mindset shift, establishing that, prior? I
don't think I've ever really had a mindset shift. I think my mindset has already been there.
Yeah.
It's more of a soul, and it's more of an actually intrinsic spirit that now I have a purpose, now I have a destiny, now I have a calling. And so in a way, it was a little bit of both. It was both that, I've always had that mindset, man, I'm going to go out there and go and make a difference or change the world. But really, I didn't have any context around it. But now I have a context around, now I can then really start channeling all that energy that I have towards one specific thing.
Was that instant? Did you wake up in hospital and instantly you feel this has changed, or was that a process?
The truth, Sammy.
So here, let me share with you a story. So my little girl, she was around 3.5, 4 years old at the time. And so when I woke up, I was in a complete and utter state of denial. Man, this hasn't happened to me. I haven't really had a car accident. It's okay. I'm going to wake up from this nightmare. I haven't lost my arm. I haven't wrecked my leg. It's okay. Or in a movie, it's going to end soon. So at first I was in denial. But then when I realized what had happened, I remember going through pillow after pillow just simply for my tears. So I was sad, not for myself. I was more sad that my kid would have to grow up with a disabled father. And so I remember her running into the hospital room, tears are running down my face. She jumped up in the bed and she goes, Dad, did you have a car accident? And I said, yeah, I had a car accident. And she goes, Dad, did you lose your arm in the accident? And I said, yeah, I lost it. I lost my arm. And then she said this, she goes, Dad, the doctors, they couldn't find it anywhere. And so she was so lighthearted about it. She believed that, that I just lost my arm. They can find it again. They can sticky tape it back up. It's absolutely fine. But one thing that my kid has never said, she's never said, Dad, I wish. Dad, I wish you had 2 arms. She's never said it. Dad, I wish you could, throw me up in the air with both arms. She's never said it. So that gave me a real sense of resilience and a real sense of, wow, if my girl can look at me and still accept me for who I am, then maybe I can also accept me for who I am as well. So I never ever went through depression or anxiety or stress through my accident. I came from a place of, I'm so grateful that I still exist. I came from a place of, I'm so grateful that I'm still alive. People out there, they die through car accidents. People out there, they die through massive trauma or a massive crisis. And I'm still alive. I mean, what the flipping heck do I have to complain about? So for me, there's a real sense of deep gratitude that I'm still a father. My kids still love me. I still got a wife. I got clothes on my back. I got food in my fridge. I got money in my wallet. So certainly my intrinsic self says I have to be grateful because I can no longer be here. So that was really a foundation also to help me get through as well.
Jacob, you're sitting there nodding your head, shaking. How is that? So, Kairos Moments, I was going to ask you 3 guys, right? I mean, you've spent time with me. I mean, we probably haven't, I'll probably say the word wrong still, probably too much of an Australian twang. Kairos Moments. When Sam says something like that in the context in which he's framed it, does it take you to a point in your life?
I don't think I've had any as shaking and kind of finite moments as Sam probably has. I know when my father passed away when I was 20, there was a period of time where I kind of started to think, what am I going to do differently? I'd sort of taken that relationship for granted. Some of his sort of last moments to me were trying to understand better the relationship we had. And it was a period of time where I was 20, I was acting out, I was trying to find myself in the world, and I don't think I'd done enough to make him proud at that moment. So,
dude, I was 37 and did the same thing.
Yeah, and every moment since.
And you lost your dad last year, Sam?
Yeah, I lost my dad 12 months
and you had similar feelings, right?
Very, very
a
similar.
lot of the moments since have been trying to grow into and become the person that I wish he was here to see.
But the thing about it is, don't compare. Because what we do, we compare our story and says someone else's story was better than my story. Someone else's story is more interesting to listen to rather than my story. But you know what's really interesting? One thing I've found, particularly when it does come to story, because everyone has a story, is that when we start comparing, then we discount ourselves, and it's a limiting belief. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. Their story is cooler than my story. And it's actually quite disempowering. Yeah. So my encouragement to people is try not to compare your story and realize that, you know, you've gone through that story for a reason and a purpose. And my mentor that helped me write my books, her name is Marilyn Horowitz, and she lives in New York City, and she's like a writer mentor. And she actually said, one of the greatest things that she said to me was, get down to that little boy inside that little kid inside us, what is he crying out for? And what does he want? And where is his emotions? And if we can start expressing that, we can start making our story so relevant to the listener that it can be an edge-of-the-seat thriller. Even if you think your story might be boring, it's not. And it's about how to evoke emotion to help other people realize that your story matters and that we can also learn through your Kairos moment, through your hero's journey.
Yeah. Sam, one thing I've taught these boys a lot over the years was how valuable proximity is. Now, 2012, you're standing on stage and you bring up the topic proximity being power. You introduced me to that topic, all right? You changed my view on where I should be and who I should be hanging out with. You led me to hanging out with the likes of a Mark Burris, who you came and had lunch with me because I owe that to you because you helped me get there. Years before, I had a chance to sit down with, I got invited to Christmas dinner. Well, it wasn't on Christmas Day, but it was part of his exec team. Michael Chaney, who I still believe is one of the most prolific executives in Australia, I got invited to his house for Christmas dinner. I didn't go because I didn't feel that. Well, my excuse to my partner at the time was that, what's he going to teach me? But the truth was, how was I going to feel standing in front of somebody who had or held such a high esteem with me? I didn't feel worthy to go, but I flipped that around. But when you mentioned to me, and you were there talking to 700 people, you were talking to me, proximity is power. I had to get around my own bullshit to figure that out.
Right. So the whole concept of that is that we are the average of our 5 closest friends. So the reality is, if you have 3 of your friends that don't necessarily lift you up, but more bring you down, that actually suck energy out of you, then ultimately you will end up to be like that. Which then means you are the average of your 5. Which then means, who do you have in your world who could either be mentors or coaches that when you're in that conversation, they're helping you and challenging you to take on the new chapter. They're helping you and challenging you to embrace what's possible for the future. So that proximity around you, when you learn how to leverage that well, you can actually then start fast tracking your growth. You guys have heard, you learn the easy way, the hard way, or the tragic way. So you learn the easy way, you learn from other people's mistakes. You learn the hard way, you learn from your own mistake, but don't ever go tragic, which is not learning from either. And so the majority of the time I will learn the hard way, but I love learning the easy way. And I learn the easy way by hanging out with people that have been there, done that I can upgrade my proximity so I can start learning the easy way. And far out, man, you can fast track anything at all when you've got the right proximity around you that you can learn through their mistakes. And that's gold.
Yeah, and the people that you've learnt from, you've got to ask bold questions. You've got to be open and vulnerable enough to not be the smartest person in that room. And whenever you're the smartest person in the room, change the damn room.
That's on record.
And what else have you taught us, Conrad?
No, well, that proximity thing is big.
I love vulnerability as well. The word vulnerability comes from the Latin word vulnerabilius, which means an open wound. And I feel that there's so many people out there that are holding on to guilt and shame. And when you can then open that wound and say, hey guys, I'm not perfect. I've failed time and time again, but I've learned to navigate that failure. Let me share with you. It's amazing then the power of that vulnerability. Yeah. Absolutely. Vulnerability is absolute key in leadership and success.
Yeah, I would agree. Going a step back to the proximity, there's been a question that's come up, and it'd be interesting to hear your perspective and take on it, which is, we've talked about, we're all advocates of proximity. And I think we've experienced that myself and with this group and what we do here over the last 12, 18 months. One of the things we were talking about is whether you talk about learning the hard way, whether you have to go through the adversity or the grief, or whether you can learn from others. And we've talked about that in the past, of whether you need to experience it yourself to really take it on board or not. And I guess it comes back to, there's a lot of questions in the past. This is probably a bit deeper on the why and the purpose. And I know proximity is huge. but obviously you had an event, the moment, and that triggered, obviously finding that. But do you think people could find their why and their purpose without having to go through extreme adversity? And i.e. hanging around someone like yourself who could they then find their own purpose and why? Because I think everyone feels like they have to have a massive moment. My life has been quite vanilla, to be honest, and haven't had those, huge elements. I respect the story, but yeah, when you talk about proximity, do you think people can take those lessons without having to go through such extreme moments?
So there's two elements there. One is check in with your ego. So if there's a level of humility, then you're open to learn and grow from others. If you're not open to, listening, then you're going to obviously learn more the hard way. And then the other element there is, do you need a Kairos moment in order for you to wake up, for you to then find your own identity and your why? Look, I think it's a little bit of both. I think that, yes, you do need a problem or an issue or even a crisis in order for you to actually create change in your life. It's really interesting. If you had a problem or an issue, we tend to procrastinate dealing with it. We do. I know I'm so busy, man. I'm so crazy flat out. I know it's a bit of a problem, a bit of an issue. I'll deal with it when I have time. But get this, when it's a crisis, our biology links so much pain to it that says, I must get myself out of it. So sometimes I would suggest to people to turn our problems or our issues, turn that into a crisis. Because when we're in that crisis, we refuse to stay in that place.
Yeah.
We must get ourselves out of it. There's a thing which we like to call adversarial growth, which means basically through our most toughest of adversities can ignite some of the greatest of growth periods in our life. So my encouragement to us, even if it might be an issue or a burden, if you turn that into a really crisis or a massive pain, then we will force ourselves to change either, again, the way we think about it or to actually change it itself.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I think we do need some level of Kairos moment in order for us to see more drastic change in our life. But we can create that Kairos moment. It doesn't have to be circumstances that happen to us. We can actually just develop the feeling within that we refuse to accept that situation as how we've always accepted it.
I really like that. It's an interesting take on it. It comes back to that, forcing yourself to be uncomfortable, and you can kind of control that. Because, I know there's a handful of moments in my life in the business that I'm procrastinating on that, are uncomfortable. But it's, I guess, like stepping into that fire. Like you can see the fire over there. It's like stepping into it, knowing that it's going to burn you. Then you're going to figure out how to get out of it or deal with it. And I kind of like it, of like thrusting yourself into it, which we've talked about a lot of that on the past. But yeah, it was just, I really like the way that you put it to create, and it kind of, I guess having a combination of both, but then not allowing yourself to allow it to brew to a crisis, because I think a lot of us allow it to brew to a crisis unconsciously or because we're procrastinating, and then you deal with it. But I think if you could tackle it the other way, it's obviously much more empowering and much more, not a better way, but an interesting way to approach it.
There's that humility piece as well, though. Just that we can't forget that humility piece, because once we start seeing all this stuff that we're achieving, all the success that we have, ultimately that will boost our egos, that'll boost our arrogance. And when we start having too much ego and arrogance, we're not open to grow or learn from others.
Yeah, so if you put yourself in the crisis, you could end up in the same crisis in 6 months if you don't lower the guard. Yeah.
You also, I have a question around whether for yourself, if I can wind back there, you've got a young family, you've got a great marriage by the sound of things. You've just got your government car. You've got this stable job. Did something almost, even though you had this deep feeling that you were going to do something and be something, if this hadn't have happened to you, would you have found your way to that path?
And look, that's a really good question. And unfortunately, I can't answer it. And the reason why I can't, because I refuse to think about things that doesn't serve me. So it doesn't serve me if I think about what if you didn't have that accident? What would you then be doing? Would you be doing this? Would you still be doing that? And for me, I don't know, because I had the accident, and so I just simply accept that this is the hand that I've been dealt, metaphorically, and I'm okay with that. So for me, the moment that I start spending all this time on this is what if never serves someone. It doesn't serve you. And so I'm never have been a what if person. So I refuse to even start thinking about that because it's irrelevant. It's totally irrelevant. This is the hand I've been dealt. And so I'm going to spend 100% on embracing who I am, what I do, and what's possible for my future.
Hey, Sammy, just on that, I mean, you just talked about the why stuff. Now, I know the work you do through Speakers Institute, right? I mean, how long has it been going now for?
5.5 years.
I think I went to the second one.
Yes.
This bloke rings me up and goes, I need you to come to Sydney. I said, okay, sure, no worries. So I jump on a plane, sit there, and he's running this course, which is changing lives, right? Changing lives. I see you draw out whys of people. So you can, right?
Absolutely.
You can.
If look, obviously everything is a process. There is a formula for everything, and how I think a lot of the time, I will think in formula. There is a step by step. There is a step-by-step process to get anyone towards a decision. And ultimately, the reason why we haven't found our why or found our purpose is because we're not willing to make a decision, cut off and kill.
It was crazy. I mean, so going through that, I've been through a few now. So you can, and this is where I say to you guys, when we sat there and talked about going through suffering to get through to that, you don't have to. The easiest way to learn from other people. But you've got to want to do that. You've got to want to go on that journey. You want to go and find that peace within you. And to create that, what does the alternate look like? Now, does it mean you're going to lose your family? Is that where you want to go? Is that what you want that's going to make you make that decision? Does your business have to go for you to take the action? Is that what you want? But what does that look like? That's how you're talking about it. That's how what can serve you getting to that point, is because if you don't appreciate what that looks like, you'll never value the work you do to get to that spot.
A big part of that as well, I feel, is forgiveness.
Of self.
No, not necessarily.
That's where I started.
I know, but it certainly doesn't always happen that way. If we're carrying a level of offense towards another human being, whether it's a brother, a sister, an ex-partner, a mum, a dad, if we're carrying any level of offense, that can blind us towards the possibilities of our why, our purpose, our destiny. And so you have to go intrinsic first before you can go external. You have to go internal. And internal means, are you operating from a level of absolute forgiveness? Are you operating at a level of absolute freedom? And that requires a sense of vulnerability and authenticity to think, okay, do I have any ill feelings towards another human being? Because just that alone, I can see it in your eyes, whether you are, particularly when you're in a platform. I can see when people are having that level. They're subconscious submodalities of nonverbal intelligence. You can see it. And so ultimately, the greatest influences in the world are the people that have actually got a real general sense of forgiveness and of actually moving forward with a level of absolute freedom.
And forgiveness is taught. I mean, so I'm Catholic, Sammy. I mean, obviously you're Christian. The forgiveness thing is massive in Christian and Catholicism teachings. It took me a while. It took me a while to get to forgiveness because, like I said to you, I had to go through self-forgiveness for the judgment I imposed on myself. That was, post my dad's passing. That allowed me then to look to forgiveness of other people. And I went through and I forgave the 4 major partners in my life at the time because I didn't realise I was that angry at them that was holding me back. I remember the moment I did that. 4 ex-girlfriends, 19 years of my life. And up until that point, I was blaming them for everything that went on in my life that was bad instead of being grateful for having them in my life and giving me the opportunity to reflect on myself. So I know what you meant, but I had to go through that self-forgiveness first because of who I felt I was or wasn't being in my life until my dad passed away.
Yeah, look, I think one of the greatest things that stop us in seeing what's possible in our life and actually finding our why and our purpose is offense. And
That's gold, man.
it's so easy to take offense in today's world. The world teaches us how can we be more quick to take offense. That's what the world teaches us. And that offense will cripple us, will affect our health, our relationships, our finance, and certainly our success. And so my encouragement to everyone is, are you carrying any offense right now towards another human being? Some ill feelings towards anyone else?
Only Conrad.
Only Conrad. But it's that element of, not caring. What's your take on then, which is, to me, the same path, the same track, is not caring of what others think of you. Now, to me, there's an element of forgiveness there too, because if someone does ill to you, to forgive, well, then it neutralizes it, right? Someone does ill, you take offense, you forgive. It neutralizes that, which is an element of you then don't take the burden of caring necessarily of what they think, whether it's positive or negative, or their opinions on yourself. Because there's a lot of talk, and particularly Gary Vee, and a lot of the other talks out there as well. What holds a lot of people back is FOMO, with now, FOPO. Fear of other people's opinions. So through social media and everything else as well. How do you marry, acknowledge that the offense thing is phenomenal. How do you marry it with FOPO?
Look,
You're on social media, so you're on all platforms. How many people are you reaching on a weekly basis?
So I currently have around 220,000 people that follow me on social media, but our reach is in the millions.
So it can't all be great, right?
Per year. No, certainly not. There's a lot of trolls out there, and absolutely, if you haven't got trolls following you, then you're not doing enough in media. The more trolls you have, the more difference that you are actually making, which is great. Look, when it does come to other people's opinions, the reality is you never, ever, ever get over it. We've heard of the 3 of the greatest fears that every human face. The fear of not being loved, the fear of not being good enough, and the fear of not belonging. I haven't met a single human being on the planet that has 100% overcome those 3 fears. And so then that means then that we navigate it every single day. Now, from a professional speaker point of view, which has been my big part of my 15 years of career, when I get up on stage, I still do get nervous, but not because I'm worried about what they think of me. I still get nervous because I care. I actually do care that I give value to my audience. And so the moment that you start not caring about what people think of you, then there is a level of arrogance, total arrogance. And I've seen it constantly, particularly with high level, either people in personal development or leaders, even managers, even CEOs. They don't care at all what people think. So there is a negative side to FOBO. So yes, I still do care, but I more care that I'm going to serve them and give them value rather than caring what they think of me. Like I once used to care what people think of me. I'll give you an example. I was walking through an airport in Sri Lanka, and as I was walking through the airport, there was a bunch of teenagers, and they were looking at me, pointing at me, laughing, and literally then imitating me. They were putting their hand in their jacket, so obviously they look like a little chicken wing outside of their arm, which obviously is very similar to what I look, and then limping like I do when I walk. And they were pointing at me and laughing, and it really, really affected me, and I found myself crying. And I'm thinking, why am I allowing these people to get under my skin? Why has that evoked emotion in me? And it was more because I cared about what they thought of me. And it didn't really ignite in me until such time as I started looking myself in the mirror and liking what I see. So nowadays I look myself in the mirror and I'm thinking, how you doing? I like me. But it still doesn't mean, though, that I don't care about what people think of me. I do care about what they think, but only from me giving them value, not them, thinking of who I am and what
So you care about how much you serve them, as opposed to caring
if they like me or not. I don't care if you don't like me, that's your issue, not mine.
So you don't care of the opinions, but you care how much you serve other individuals to the nth degree, which is kind of like it's in the same element, but it's got a different feel to it.
Well, there's no such thing as altruism. No. What is altruism? Altruism is the selfless act of one. Not even Mother Teresa did it from a complete selfless heart. She still did it because it made her feel good knowing that she's serving her God. It made her feel good. So ultimately, there's no such thing as true altruism, which is the selfless act of one, because we all still do it for our own selfish ambitions.
So,
Go on.
sorry, something you talk about is leveraging happiness. And I feel like that leans into that quite well, because without that altruism, there has to be an element of selfishness in there as well. Yet happiness is an interesting concept, I guess, if you will. You can't just sort of sit around and be happy and smile. You need to be active in doing. But do you have any tips or processes around how you leverage happiness in what you do in your day-to-day life?
I think happiness is a choice.
I don't agree with the fact that you
I
can't
don't
be
agree.
happy. I think you can sit and be happy wherever you want to be.
No. Okay, maybe I didn't language that well, but I mean, you can't just do nothing, sit around with your life and just...
Why not?
All right, hey, let me frame it to you this way. One thing that really frustrates me right now, the growing rates of depression. Depression rates today are 10 times greater than what they were in the 1930s Great Depression. The mean onset age of depression 35 years ago was 29 years old. Today, it is 15 years old. The World Health Organization now says that depression is the number one cause of illness, at overtaking cancer. There was a Randstad study that showed that 92% of Australians feel unfulfilled in their jobs, and 45% of Australians feel unhappy. So if you look at the person next to you, if it's not him, then it's probably you. but the point I'm making is this. Happiness is a choice. It's as simple as that. And the greatest gift God ever gave us was the freedom of choice. So we get to choose. So I have a thing which is called phantom pain. If I close my eyes, I can still feel every single one of my fingers. I can feel my wrist and my elbow as if it's all still there, but it's not. I'll give you an idea what it's like. If you lean against your arm or against your leg for ages and ages, you get that really bad pins and needles, yeah? And what you want to do, you want to stretch that out to allow that circulation back through. Imagine the worst pins and needles that you've ever had in your entire life, times that by 100. That's how my arm feels 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's a thing which we like to call cognitive disassociation, which basically means what we focus on is what we get. It's as simple as that. So the point being is this, is that when we can learn that happiness is a choice, no matter what circumstances, no matter what crisis, no matter what issues or excuses that you might have, which we all have them. Trust me, I've got more excuses than everyone. But through those excuses, I still choose to be happy. So happiness is purely a choice. So every single day, through our most craziest of adversities, crisis, issues, problems, we must choose to be happy, because all the research says that the happiest people are the most successful. They live longer. They have greater relationships. They have better health. They have greater finances. Most people think that happiness is over the other side of success. But Sean Akor says it's completely the opposite. He's the positive psychologist from Harvard University. He says the most happiest people become the most successful. Happiness is not over the other side of success. It's actually before it.
Well, it's lined with purpose, right? And so I think that's sort of where I was getting at, that I feel like, because eating KFC every night makes some people happy until they're incredibly overweight, and then they're really not happy at a bigger scale in their life. So I feel like the happiness comes a lot from being on that journey, working towards or understanding and following your purpose. And I was curious as how you leverage that, because you're clearly doing that in your life and pursuing and living your passions and purpose. You can see that just by meeting you. So I was curious on that point, like, what do you do, or is it just who you are?
Look, I think we said earlier on about the whole gratitude thing. You know, even though I've only got one arm and only one good leg, I still choose to be grateful. Like, I have a roof over my head. Like, as simple as that. I am breathing right now. My youngest brother, he's the youngest in our family of 11. So I'm from a family of 11. There's 7 boys, 4 girls. I grew up down there in Tasmania. Get this, I'm an uncle 39 times. I've got 39 nephews and nieces. Well, you know, that's what happens down there in Tasmania. Yeah, I've heard it all before. I married my sister. I've got the scarf and the second head. I've heard it all before. Don't you worry, boys.
Well, hang on a sec. Indian Irish background, right? Mum and
Actually,
Dad?
English Scottish.
Oh,
So my
English.
mum is Indian and my father's Scottish. My mum was born in Kolkata in India, and my father was born in Edinburgh in Scotland. But I was born here in Australia. So the point being is my youngest brother, 21 years old. He's my best mate in the world. We hang out all together. You know, he's a really, really cool guy, and he got diagnosed with cancer, leukemia. And so I was the same blood match as him, so I donated my own bone marrow to my brother. And at age 21, he passed away. He died. It was certainly really hard for me, for my parents, for my brothers and sisters. But you know what's really beautiful about this is that he's already done his dash. He's already achieved everything that he's meant to achieve on this planet. There are people out there that are no longer with us. And I'm sorry for people who have lost their loved ones. But you know something? They are no longer meant to be here. They've done what they've meant to be, what they've meant to have achieved. Now, the beautiful thing is this. We are still alive. There are people out there that are our ages that are no longer here. They're gone. But we are still alive, which then means, and the beautiful thing about this is that there's still something that we have to achieve. There's still something that we have to do. And that's what's beautiful about it. I am still breathing. There's a roof over my head. There's money in my wallet. There's food in the fridge. I mean, why can't you be happier? Just simply for that basic thing that you're flipping breathing right now.
Agree with you, bro.
So for me, I'm a simple man at its core. I don't overcomplicate things. There's no overanalyzing thing. I am so simple at its core. I am breathing. I have clothes on my back. I have a wife that loves me. I have kids that support me. I've got an amazing team. I get to travel. I get to love. I get to feel. I get to touch. I get to hang out. Man, I tell you, if you can't be grateful over the little things, then you shouldn't even be here.
You'll never get a crack at the big.
Do you have we've talked on routines and habits as well. Do you have any particular routines or habits? Do you journal? Do you practice? I mean, I don't think you really, by the sounds of it, gratitude's a moment by moment practice, which is phenomenal, rather than
Plunge pool, jumping on a trampoline before you jump on stage.
Yeah. Do you have anything in particular that you kind of, to maintain your energy? Obviously, the gratitude and all that fuels that. But yeah, any particular things or not really?
Yeah, so I do pray a lot. So some people call it mindfulness. Some people might call it meditation. I like calling it prayer. And so a lot of my prayer is just simply, again, a very grateful thing. And then on top of that, I also believe that I am a vessel on this planet, which then means it's not me but through me, not me but through me. And that way, it actually helps me to realize that I don't have it all together all the time. I actually need to use a higher power in order for that to spur me on and achieve what I need to achieve in this world. So, yeah, ultimately...
is that a daily practice,
every
morning,
day,
evening,
every day.
both?
So first thing, I do wake up very, very early. So I wake up around 4:30 each morning. I also do, I don't sleep much at all. So on average, I'll do about 4 hours a night.
4 hours. There's a bit of competition there, Conrad.
I'm good with his 4.
Might lose your badge.
I'm getting 5, so I'm okay. they hate the fact that I get 5 hours sleep, mate. In fact, we had a sleep person on here a couple of weeks ago. Almost ended up in a stoush because...
Best time to sleep is when you're dead.
Yeah, I get it.
but look, don't get me wrong. There's probably around one or two times a month where I might have an afternoon sleep. So I might, just crash at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and then wake up at 5 or whatever, or so there would be times where when I sleep, that's when I sleep. One thing I love is not conforming. So conforming says that we need to sleep at night for 8 hours. Conforming says that we need 3 meals a day. I would regularly go with 1 meal a day, sometimes two meals a day. I just don't like conforming. And then on top of that, you have to, we have to sleep at this time, we have to eat at these times, et cetera, et cetera. For me, I love eating when I need to, sleeping when I need to, and making a difference when I need to. So I feel we need to constantly challenge the status quo, So Steve Jobs puts it beautifully, we are the crazy ones. the square pegs in the round holes. We're misfits. We don't fit in.
Do you still believe in, with that being said, I'd be curious of what about like structure and habits, i.e. routine? Are you doing the same things? I mean, are you up at 4:30 every day regardless? So, on the contrary of that, I mean, do you still follow, you said you're a man of formula and methods. Do you believe in like structure and like your week and your days and things like that to achieve all the things you're doing? Obviously, you don't have an insight of obviously your day to day, but I would assume just like all of us, it's busy. But yeah, how do you marry that up with habits and
so it's
routines?
hard. It's difficult for me to have a daily habit, and one of the main reasons is because of my schedule. So I'm in different time zones 3 to 4 times a week. So it's certainly very difficult, to say the least, to have certain daily habits. However, I do have moment habits, such as, before I eat, I always bless the food. Before I get up on stage, I always do a ritual. Before I come into a high pressure situation, I always do again, a bit of a ritual. Before I go and connect with my kids, I do a breathing exercise, etc. So they have all of my attention. Before I go into another experience, I might turn off my phone. So there's a number of things that I do in moments where, these things are non-negotiable. Even as simple as, for me to keep the faithfulness in my marriage, I don't meet one-on-one with a female after hours. And when I am, so there's a number of boundaries that I have in my life in order for me to still operate at the momentum that I do. But when it does come to a daily morning ritual or a daily evening ritual or whatever, I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm one that will conform to that.
Yeah, but I mean, on that, would agree that habits definitely are extremely powerful.
Oh, mate, without a doubt. If as a communicator, as a masterful communicator, I need to make sure that every moment where I am exposed to moments of influence, I need to make sure I'm in the right frame of mind. Yeah. So, there's a thing with a concept we like to call third space. So what a third space is something that we do outside of our own personal life, something that we do outside of our professional life, something that we do just for you to recharge your tank. Because if you think about it, your energy is like a tank. And ultimately, you're giving. You're giving in your personal life, your professional life. You're giving all the time. And very slowly and surely, that tank will empty. So what do you do to recharge and fill up that tank in order for you to operate on an overflowing tank rather than a scarcity tank, yeah? So I always have a third space that actually helps me to recharge.
What's that for you these days, mate? I know you like the movies a bit. We've shared a few movies together.
Yeah, I like going to the movies by myself, not with anyone else, because they talk too much. So I'm a bit of a loner. I sit in the middle of the cinema, eat my ice cream, and just switch off for a couple of hours. I love it.
It's a great feeling, that one.
Yep. And then, literally getting on a flight, sitting there. I only fly business, and sitting there and put my legs up and then put in my AirPods and just sit there and just listen to just beautiful either classical music or worship music or.
Well, you're a musician, right?
Yeah. So I've been a musician ever since I was 7 years old. Been playing the guitar.
Still playing the guitar?
Yeah, I'm one of the only people in the world that plays guitar with one hand, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I do like that third space as well to bring in music. Music for me is a big part of my life, big part. Sometimes I'll listen to music before I get up on stage.
So I think we've gotten to you, the individual. I really want to get to you, the businessman, right? Before we finalise all this stuff, because we're all businessmen here. I value your journey, the part that I've seen and played in it with you. Are you prepared to share with us 2 or 3 struggles as being a businessman and as busy as you are?
Yep. So just to give people an idea, I run a team of 60. We're in 4 countries, and we have a very aggressive growth strategy into another 8 more countries in the next 18 months to 2 years. So we certainly are on a huge trajectory, particularly from our growth perspective, and knowing that we have a very, very unique value proposition.
Do you have vision for? We're talking Speakers Institute here.
Yep.
Do you have a vision for that, mate?
Yeah. So last year in November, I launched our 2030 vision. Very, very detailed, very intrinsic, and then through that, we reverse engineered it. So we went 6 to 18 months, very solid. 18 months to 3 years, solid. 3 years to 5 years solid, and then all the way through to our 2030 vision. My encouragement to everyone here is this. You might have kids, you might have family, etc. And what we do to our kids, we already start planning their future. We look at what schools they want to go to, what colleges, we look at all this. So all of a sudden, we're already thinking of them in the next 12 years, which if you think about it, 2030 is only 11 years away, right? So it's quite easily us to do that with our kids. Have you done that with your business? Are you thinking about you in 2030? Where will you be? What influence will you carry? What will you have? What recognition do you want? So for me, I constantly think about what's next, where are we going? Because without vision, the people perish. And my people are my staff, are my volunteers, are my leadership team, and my advisory board. Without vision, the people perish. And for me, I always believe there must be more vision than provision. There must be more vision than provision. So for me, we're constantly looking at growing that. The biggest thing for me is managing my core leaders and making sure that they're keeping me accountable and I'm keeping them accountable. Because ultimately, we're still so scared to offend and we tiptoe around our et cetera, et cetera. But ultimately, we've created a culture of grace. And what I believe grace is forgiving before offense even happens. So within our leadership team, there's a lot of, sparks that fly. There's a lot of real high pressure stuff. I sometimes don't get my own way, which is super frustrating for me. But something, there's always grace, which means outside of that boardroom, we're mates, we connect, there's no offense, we don't carry that, et cetera, et cetera. And so that has actually really helped me, particularly from that top tier leadership point of view. How can we always operate in the grace zone more? Because the moment that there is offense, that offense will disrupt productivity, performance, the health of the team, the culture, et cetera, et cetera. So the more that I'm pushing grace in the forefront of all interaction within our staff, the more I feel that it's a beautiful culture that we're working with.
So how did you shift from samcawthorn.com, the speaker, to Speakers Institute? What were the challenges there, mate? I mean...
Massive. One of the biggest challenges was managing my own ego. Massively.
I'm glad you said that.
It is.
I didn't want to pull that one out of you.
It is the greatest challenge ever, because you need to think about it. Think about it from this point of view. I've been on stage all around the world, 36 countries, biggest global stadiums in the world. Every single place, I have a lineup of people, line up 100 meters plus of people that want to take photos and then get in my face, in my ear saying, you've just changed my life. You've made a difference. You are awesome. You're amazing. You're amazing. You're awesome. You've changed, blah, blah, blah. Now, I've heard that day in, day out, every single country around the world. And now I start believing it. So when I get home and my wife says, go and take out the trash, I'll say, go get stuffed, right? Because I start believing this stuff. It's true. And so then now all of a sudden I have to have a team around me where I got to listen more. I got to manage that connection. I've got to inspire the team. And it's not now just a Sam show. That was the hardest thing, because most speakers, if you're a good speaker, you need a very healthy sense of ego.
Oh, yeah.
And so having that humility has been the most difficult thing.
It's work in progress, right?
Always a work in progress. But then again, look, that's why I've got an advisory board. That's why I have a great leadership team as well. These guys here are in my ear. And I always have mentors. I've never, ever gone a day where I haven't got a mentor that I can ring up and say, hey, man, I'm struggling a little bit here. Can I get some advice?
It's funny, though, that advisory board, watching you bring to the table all the energy, all the excitement, and then we just sit around and go, no, Sam.
Cut me down.
Can't do that, Sam.
Yeah, it's great.
Not about that,
and that's
Sam.
what I need. That's exactly what I need. It's exactly what I need.
But you've grown, man. You've grown massively. I mean, to lead that many people, you've had to grow. And I think this is the thing about you guys is understanding that you've got to take the biggest fucking chisel and the biggest fucking hammer and start to shape yourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Otherwise, the universe will do it for you, and it ain't going to be easy.
That's true. I'm really intrigued, because this is a selfish question, because this is something I've battled with over the last 12 months. you're talking about aggressive growth, and you've talked about what's next. And I've been guilty.
Aggressive though. 5 years, we were sitting in your electronic media department using their freaking beanbags 5 years ago.
Yeah.
All right. With what? A team of you, your
Just
wife,
me, my
and
wife,
two contractors.
yeah, and that was it.
That's amazing.
Go.
Where I was going with that is the balance between gratitude and accepting what you have versus the balance of like, is it just because you feel the duty or the responsibility to reach as many individuals and touch as many individuals? It's like, it's got to be what's next now, what's bigger. Because something that I've sit with my business is like, because is that bigger, more problems, more money, more problems. But, as the business grows, you get different problems, more situations. There's be careful what you wish for. And something I've battled with is my ambition, which is kind of like, what's next? And there's an element of like, well, can you not just accept and be grateful for what you have? Because you are already making a difference. You are already influencing others. That conflict, you ever been challenged with that? Or it's like, no, you feel the sense of duty. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're coming.
And it's something I've battled with.
My brother told me, we were way back when, 10 years ago plus, he said, be content, but not satisfied. And so I live by that mantra. I'm very, very, very content. I'm so content. Like every single night, I know that my guide is looking down at me saying, well done, Sam, you did well today. I'm very content. I've got a great wife. I've got kids. I've got money in the bank. I'm so content. But there is more. There is more. So it's not like a sense of urgency and anxiety that I have to see the growth, I can't sleep right because I haven't seen the growth. No, I'm content, but I'm not satisfied, which means there is more. There's always more. So for me, that's at the cornerstone, how I've navigated the struggle that you feel at the moment. I'm content. I'm very content. And I walk in the office and I'm very, very content, but I'm not satisfied, which means there is more. There is more. There's more growth. There's more difference that we can make. There's here's a concept. Ready? They say that a billionaire is $1 billion in the bank. A millionaire is $1 million in the bank. There's a massive shift that's happening around the world. And nowadays, a millionaire is someone that has impacted 1 million lives. A billionaire is someone that has impacted 1 billion lives. That is the new currency in tomorrow's world. Period. And so ultimately, I want to be a billionaire. And I will become a billionaire, 100%.
So you're traveling around, you've got a really hectic schedule, and you're starting the institute. How does that sort of sit with you as a challenge? How do you leverage the small team, trying to build it to a bigger team? Oh, I'm trying to deal with a problem. I've got to get on stage. I've got to spend a half day in this workshop. How do you talk us through that period where you're really in the infancy stage and how it was a struggle for you with such a hectic... I assume you kept the workload. You didn't just stop for 6 months and start to build the institute. How did you get through it?
It's the right management team, someone that you can really trust. So clearly at the time, it was more my wife. So my wife, she was my business partner and co-founder. And then getting the right next leader in, whether it was a CEO or our general manager or our operations director, etc., and just empowering them, always being on the phone to them. Sometimes you feel that, okay, I've got a team of 5, 6, 10 people. I now need to train them all. I now need to inspire them all. And no, you just do 1 or 2 and that's more than enough. So now we work via philosophy within our organization that we have a system and a process, then we then train them on that, then we then support them on that. So everything is this 3-part formula. You got the system or you got the process, which you have to have. Yeah. And then as long as there's training and support, that is all that's needed. And you can develop the greatest infrastructure for any organization under my understanding if you've actually got those 3. So ultimately, I and my leadership team has built the system, the process and the system. And now my team will then give them training and support on that system. And so for me, once I build a system, I'll move on to the next one. I'll build another system. And then my leadership team, they then do all the training and they do all the support. So for me, I can wash my hands after I built the system.
Right.
That's a leader. Books. We'll wrap it up on the current one. Storytelling, mate. How's it going?
You know, it's really cool. I want to inspire everyone out there to get a book out, because ultimately I'm not a writer. I'm a speaker. So I outsource my books. Did you know Robert Kiyosaki didn't write his book? He outsourced it. a lot of these massive international best-selling books, the writer actually doesn't write it. Now, don't get me wrong. This is all my concept, all my ideas, all my stories, etc., etc. And then I outsource a researching team. They back up all my concepts with research and data and evidence. And then I get a ghostwriter to put it all together so it flows well. And so for me, you know, I can show you a book that I got published, which took me 4 to 5 hours of my time. That's it. Here it is on the shelf, you know, 20, 30,000 words. It only took me 4 to 5 hours of my time. I outsourced it. So that's what I've done with a lot of my books. That's why I've now released 7 books. My latest book, it's called Story Showing. How to stand out from the storytellers. You know what's really interesting? Around 7 years ago, we saw a big change in story. Everyone started talking about the visuals of story, visual storytelling. So everyone said, okay, put images to it, put video to it. Yeah, this is how story needs to be done. You know, if you look at all the Super Bowl ads for the last 3 years, every single one of the ads has been a story that evokes emotion. So what we're now seeing is even more of a change now. We're sick and tired of people telling us what to do. And here we are, we're at home, our mum and dad tells us what to do, we go into school, our teacher tells us what to do, we go into the workplace, our boss tells us what to do. We're sick and tired of people telling us things. And here we are now being told to be storytellers. If I say something like, let me show you something, rather than saying, let me tell you something, the show you now, I'm now considering how this lands for you as the listener. So I think we need to be more story showers, showing how the story is relevant to the listener rather than just going head to head tell. So that's the whole concept of storytelling rather than story showing. And the book has done really well. You know, we've now reached, we got number 2 in Australia outside of the Barefoot Investor. Couldn't get him off the top. And we also did get in the top 10 of the New York Times as well.
Where can we buy it?
You can buy it at any good bookstores, any airports, online, anywhere at all you like. I'll send you a copy.
We'll have a few copies. Get in touch.
but ultimately, stories of the future of influence.
Any last questions for Sam?
I do. You just mentioned the future, and I think it might be a great opportunity to being a speaker, and that's what you do as your. Maybe it's not quite your full-time profession. Maybe the business is really getting up there. But what do you see? I mean, AR is a real thing. VR is a real thing. The world is changing. What do you see the future of speaking look like in terms of engaging, educating, building communities of people?
Great question. There's 4 elements, yeah? I'm going to tell you 4 things of what we'll see changing the future of influence and also the future of speaking. The first one is the influence of TED. What we've seen with TED coming in with 18-minute keynotes, and now they're saying 12-minute keynotes. I recently had a conversation with the TEDx curator of TEDx Gateway, second largest TEDx event in the world, and he said they only let their speakers speak for 6 to 9 minutes. That's it. 10 years ago, the average for a keynote was 90 minutes. The average for a blog was 2,200 words. 5 years ago, the average keynote was 45 minutes. The average blog was about 800 words. Today, I'm now getting 15-minute keynotes. An average for a blog is 150 words. There was a reason why Twitter was created. In 140 characters or less, you should be able to communicate anything at all in bite-sized sound bites, bite-sized chunks, sound bites. So the influence of TED has certainly been a huge thing in speaking. And I think if we're not communicating in short, sharp, bite-sized chunks, then you're losing the game of influence, number 1. Number 2, rise of cyborgs. What we're now seeing are these mobile devices that we sleep within an arm length away every single night, which then means that we are within an arm length away 24 hours a day of the world's knowledge. We can type in anything at all. We can get any answer to any question. Recently, I spoke at a conference and there was a live Twitter feed on the screen. They're on stage. Like Twitter feed. And so ultimately, whenever the speaker was speaking, you see all these people in the audience tweeting, oh yeah, this is great. Here's that link for what he said. Hey, blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly there was a really boring speaker. So up on the screen in the Twitter things, like, this guy's boring. When's lunch? Get him off stage. And it was crazy what was happening. Ultimately, the AV guys, they took it straight off stage. So what we're now seeing is that this mobile device, people are already doing a Google search on you. They've seen all your latest tweets, all your latest Facebook. They're looking at your LinkedIn. They're looking at all your latest videos, even before they even meet you. even before they meet you. So the world's technology or the world's information on you, profiling you, is now freely available online. So then that means if you're not constantly updating, refreshing your content, because we now speak to cyborgs, we are half robot, half human. And also, even if I have my bionic arm on, I'm literally half like I've got 8 arms all up. So I've got this one bionic arm. It's the most advanced bionic arm in the world. It's worth $120,000, and I program it with my iPhone X. Seriously, I've got an app for my arm. Get this, if you guys downloaded the app, you could control my hand. Seriously.
Elon Musk talked about it recently on that Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan.
He's talking
exactly
about the Neuralink, and he's saying that AI is so scary that
it's insane.
It's moving at a rate that's too fast for anyone.
With our institute, with the Speakers Institute, I can give you an experience right now speaking on stage. And on top of that, there is a new phase 2, which was recently launched, where we can give you feedback on your voice through AI technology. We would way rather get feedback from a computer than what we would human beings because of our egos. And so some of the stuff that's coming out at the moment with virtual reality, it is unbelievable. I can give you an experience right now speaking on a live stage. It's insane. The third one is inspired content, which basically means we want an accountant, or we want an economist to also give us inspiration, and we want an inspirational speaker to also give us content. Also, on top of that, we want them to speak with more certainty about where the future is going. We want more opinions on where the future is, because that's where the future is. So that's the third one. And then the fourth one of the future of speaking is direct access, which basically means what we now want is speakers nowadays find it really hard to be proactive. Nowadays, they're being more reactive. And what I mean by that, when the big car manufacturing plant closed down there in Adelaide, one of my mates, he did a cold call after seeing a newspaper article to that manufacturing plant saying, hey guys, I actually specialize in downturns, mergers, acquisition, et cetera, et cetera. I'd like to go down and meet with him. He flew down to Adelaide. He got a $300,000 contract over the next 18 months to go and work with that organization with layoffs, et cetera, et cetera. If you want to be an influencer, it's very, very hard for you to work proactively. So the best way to do is work reactively. Have a look at exactly what goes on in news, current affairs, et cetera, and then react to what the market is currently in, and then start getting opportunities that way as well. So yeah, there's a lot of changes that we're seeing in the speaking industry, absolutely. And I think if we stay ahead of the curve, and if we're always talking about the future of, it certainly will allow us to stand out.
Great.
Anything else, gentlemen?
Oh, I'm sure there'd be plenty. That was amazing. Thanks so much for your time and popping in, Sam. That was, it was really good to listen and be within the proximity. It's really good.
Sam, the website that people can go to get more information on the Speakers Institute or your books or whatever's going on in your life, what's the preferred website?
Yeah, so you got speakersinstitute.com.au, or alternatively, you can just go straight to mine, samcawthorn.com.
Mate, always a pleasure to be in your proximity, bro.
Thank you, Conrad.
It's a short one.
It's mutual.
It's a short one this time. I don't get to hang out with you
That's good.
too long today because I've got to get to another meeting. But guys, thanks for your time. Thanks for the impromptu podcast. Over and out.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Champagne.